are about to study page 3 in Tractate Bava Metzia. Just let's refresh the first Mishnah we study in this beautiful tractate. The first Mishnah dealing with two people who hold together a talit, a garment. Each of them claim that he is the owner. That garment is assumed to be a valuable garment, and we impose upon each and every one of them to take an oath, and this way we can divide it. Remember, the first concept in the Mishnah was each party, let's use names, Reuven, Shimon, two separate names. Reuven claimed that it's his own, Shimon claimed that I entitled to the entire garment. So therefore, what we are saying is, let's divide it up. From that point, we try to match it with view of the special rabbi, whose name is Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said that if you have this type of Reuven and Shimon, two different people, Reuven, he deposited by a third party, let's use the name Levi, X amount of money, let's say $100. Shimon deposited by Levi $200. So you have one party with 100 deposit, the second party is 200 deposit. The problem is, time passed by, Levi wanted to return the money. Levi doesn't remember which one of the two gave him the 200 and which one gave just the 100. Yet, we are not sure who is the liar, because it is clear what Levi have is the 300. So it's clear that one of the two, either Reuven or Shimon, gave him 200. So here we have the different opinions. The sages said, guess what? Take the 300, since each party is sure that they gave 100, take 100 of the 300, give it to Reuven, take 100 of the 300, give it to Shimon, and therefore the 100 that left, leave it alone. As we said, Ad She'yavo Eliyahu, until the Messianic era, until Elijah come and tell us who is saying the truth. Rabbi Yossi challenged that, and Rabbi Yossi said, you know, the liar, the unscrupulous person who's lying over the 100, he is gaining, because think about it. If he is the one who gave only 100, he gets his money back. So he loses nothing. What do you guys gain by ruling that Levi needs to give each party just 100? And to say that it will left until Eliyahu Navi will come. So therefore, he disputed that. He says, you know what, if you want to do it this way, torture him. Just leave the entire amount until Eliyahu Navi comes. And obviously the rabbis ask a question later on, you see, what do you mean? Birkei Yosef asked, leave it for Eliyahu. And the main notion we're going to study is, in a way, leave it in such a level of negotiation or even torture the parties, in order to squeeze the truth out of them. Maybe time will heal, maybe time will help to see and to bring it to justice. Another notion in our study today is something that it's basically a continuation of what we studied in the first fascinating daf on Bava Metzia. It's a well-known Hasidic story about the great Divrei Chaim, the great Tzanzer Rebbe. They said that it was his notion, Tractate Bava Metzia, that he studied, it's all kind of views, how many times he studied, but many times. Because Harotze le'achkim, one who wants to be shrewd or smart, should deal with this Dinei Mamonot. Because the second one is situation like, you see something valuable. Reuven and Shimon traveling, let's say, to a country like Liberia, Amazonas, right? Places like exotic places, but it's also well known that you can find in certain places extremely valuable let's say diamond jewelry, etc. Even you find a blood jewelry, that it's just a raw material, it can be one light stone can be 100K. So now you have a case of Reuven and Shimon. Both of them see something. Reuven ran and chased it and have it in his hand. Shimon already realized that it's Reuven. But he wants to take advantage of the Reuven's success, which unfortunately happened in human nature. So he figured out, let me go to court, hold it with him, and lie and said, we catch this valuable stone together, and therefore what do I have to lose? The worst case scenario, I'll not get it, but I have a chance to get maybe a half or maybe part of that. So here we need to find some way to enforce, maybe toward making an oath, maybe with the proper witnesses. It's all discussion how you'll be able to enforce the truth and not to have one party take advantage of success of the other party. Another subject we, God willing, going to discuss today, it's called Chenvani and Pinkaso. This is not just here, you see it in other tractates as well. You have an owner of a store, and you have a manager of the store, and you have the customers. That's usual manner. Let's go back the old days, before the computer era, and then you see also application nowadays. So in the old days, it can be, that's the question that Ktsot HaChoshen asked, Netivot HaMishpat and others, you have the Chenvanid, you have the storekeeper who come and claim, you owe me, let's say, $200. And the other party said, it can be. I never bought materials for $200. He says, look, I have all the record. So whom you trust? Do you go by the words of the storekeeper? Because the guy didn't sign. Let's say nowadays, you can have computers, you can have signatures, you can have other form of credit. Whom you trust and how? Do you say that's because the storekeeper have this type of trust on emanut, that he will not add money or exaggerate or lie? Or you go the other way around. You say that you have to trust the customer, that what he obligated, what he owes, that is going to pay. So with this so many fascinating subjects, we're going to study together Tractate Bava Metzia, page 3, 8 lines from the top of the page. Leima matnitin delak Rabbi Yossi. This is something that, as we said, Maneh Shlishi is a subject not just here but other places. You have this case of 200, 100, 300, which we just discussed earlier. And we're going to visit this subject again on page 37, God willing. The question is, by whom this money munach, by whom? It's ad she'yavo Eliyahu, which is by the one who deposited, by Levi, or by the rabbinic court. But he said, the Ike Rabbi Yossi, if you tell me that it's followed the view of Rabbi Yossi, ha'amar, im ken ma'ifsid ramai. Since one of them is lying, he's just gave 100 to Levi. So what he's losing by having the money in some place? So Rabbi Yossi hold no. Take the entire 300 and put it aside and don't divide it between these two. So the Gemara challenged that. It said, Elamai, you mean to say that our Mishnah, in a sense of juxtaposition, follow the view of Rabbanan, of the sages, who disagree with Rabbi Yossi? And what do they hold? They hold that he needs to give the 100 to each party, 100 to Reuven, 100 to Shimon. And they said, Keivan de Amrei Rabbanan, since the sages hold, in this case of Maneh Shlishi, of the third one, Hash'ar yehem munach ad she'yavo Eliyahu, which means is we put it aside to make decision later. Haname kish'ar dame, This is compared to our discussion, in original discussion in the Mishnah in regards to the talit, to a garment, which is disfeikahi, because this situation of talit is unclear, is uncertain to whom the entire garment belongs. So it should therefore be placed in a safe place until the matter is resolved. So the Gemara said, well, the whole notion is, as the Ritva explained, that the Ramai, that the unscrupulous person, should not gain anything out of that. So the Gemara rejected, said, Hi Mai, how do you compare the two cases? The one in the Mishnah and one here. He said, I amart bishlama Rabbanan. If you tell me that the Mishnah followed the view of our sages, we have to differentiate, we have to divide between two cases, which is between the circumstance in the Mishnah and the one that dealing with maneh shlishi, with the other. Why? Hatam over there, in the case of maneh shlishi, devadai hay maneh dechad minayuhu. Let's think together to make sure we all understand. You have Reuven, who gave $100 to Levi. You have Shimon, who gave $200 to Levi. Levi is not clear who gave what. So think together with me. This 100 each party gave, it belonged to each party, because it's clear that both Reuven and Shimon, each of them gave 100. The third one is entirely belongs to whom? Just to one party. So therefore, Amrei Rabbanan, what did they say? Just said, how do you handle this disputation since one party is 100% entitled for the 100 and the other party is 100% not entitled to that 100? So the sages said, Yehem munach ad she'yavo Eliyahu, which means don't carry a situation that you divide a 100 that was definitely belongs to just one party. Why? Because one of them definitely is going to lose 50 if you do so. Versus Hacha, here in the Mishnah situation, when you have a garment, when you have a talit, the two people claim that they owns it, the ikale meimar de travaihuhu, you have the possibility that the two people who hold this talit garment lifted that, for example, together, or the seller agree upon to sell this talit to both of them, and therefore, Amrei Rabbanan palgei bishvu'ah. So the sages said, you know what? The way you should divide it is you impose an oath. The people usually are afraid to take an oath. Think about the psychological element with taking oath, with the form of court and taking oath. It's a serious matter. So we approach them with the oath, and the assumption is that they are both truthful, and therefore you have no choice but to divide it. But in a sense of juxtaposition, you can compare the case of the Mishnah to the case of these two deposited 100 and 200 that represent the view of Rabbanan and Rabbi Yossi. So here what we said, Elai amart Rabbi Yossi, if you tell me that the Mishnah notion of two people who hold the garment match the view of Rabbi Yossi, and what Rabbi Yossi said again, make sure that we all remember, Rabbi Yossi said, unlike the sages, take the entire 300, these guys are fighting, put it aside, wait for the Messiah, wait for the Eliyahu to see what happened. So therefore, how it's matched, it says, Hashta, you can learn from inferiority, which is called Kal Vachomer. Uma Hatam, in the case of the third one meaning the 300. You have 100 and 200. Reuven gave 100, Shimon gave 200. Together Levi hold 300. We have an issue of what? Of 100 of the three, that both of them claim that they are the one, each of them claim that he is the one who gave that. So the bevadai lemar, that everyone agreed that Reuven have $100 that he deposits, and we have a definite known that Shimon have 100 that deposits. So 100 and 100, which is 200, is undisputable, right? Amar Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi is kind of short-fused judge, and he says, if these guys are fighting, don't give this 100 and this one the 100. No, no, no. Take the entire 300, put it aside. You know, and that's it. So, therefore, what happened here? Hacha versus in our Mishnah, or you try to compare it, the ikale meimar dechad minayohu. You may say that since these two guys holding this garment together, it may happen that this garment belong only to one of the two. So therefore, the other party has nothing to do with that. You remember the case that they catch a blood diamond and the other guy come to court and said we are partners? So it can be a case that the guy is just lying and taking advantage of success of another guy. So what we said, lo kol sheken. So obviously we see here that Rabbi Yossi hold you should not divide the garment, the talit, between the two parties. And again, you mean to say that he put the talit and put it aside until Eliyahu and Avika. So therefore, the Beit Din should rule that when this unscrupulous liar will lose, so you delay money, even a money that it's clear belongs to a person. Why you do it? It's because the Ritva explained this hopefully will force the liar to say the truth. But so think about it. If you do this type of fine of knas to delay money that belongs to someone, how much so that if you have a mammon, you have money that you are in a quandary, you're not sure. So therefore, the idea of yachloku bishvu'ah, that taking an oath and divided between the party, then it's clear when is no liar, when you know that it's just a disputation here. But the Rishonim ask, remember an introduction for this tractate, we said that one of the notions is called Kol De'alim Gvar. What is called De'alim Gvar? You have an ownerless estate, and people come and grab something. Okay? Can be movable objects and be other things. So what you said, whoever have more muscles, more aggressive, he's taking it and he's the owner. So why you don't say it here too? So the Tosfot explains, and you see it also in others, you see the Ramban, he said, Levi comes here and he said, I have here this sum of money, this deposit, and it has to be one of the two, either Reuven or Shimon. So he said, the idea is that each party will have a strong approach that I'm the solely and the only owner, therefore you have no choice but to put it aside. As we explained in the Mishnah we said when one party agreed that you have a half, then the whole scenario changed. Versus if each party says you have nothing with this, it's all mine. It's a two different thing. But anyway, it was the era of the Chafetz Chaim, prior to the great Chafetz Chaim, which I know that Gilbert and David like his books and his writings, and we studied together his beautiful writings. So at that time, just prior to Chafetz Chaim, it was a great rabbi by the name of Rabbi Mordechai Ushminer. That was his name in Poland. He was an amazing Poel Yeshuot, amazing tzaddik, great man. So he wrote a book called Shut Katan. It's a kind of responsa, literally meaning short responsa. So he brought, based on our sugya, a question. You have Reuven, he purchased from a non-Jew, those days, let's say, a donkey. And Shimon came in and he said, look, I agree that Reuven purchased from a non-Jew this donkey, but I gave this guy half of the money. Reuven said, what is he talking about? Nonsense. I put all the money. It's all myself. So again, let's understand. Let's have a non-Jewish fellow, pick a name, let's say Paul. And Reuven and Shimon said, Paul is not present. Reuven said, I gave Paul $200. Shimon said, I agree that Reuven purchased from Paul, but I put 100 of the 200. All right? So the question is, what do you do here? If you follow the Mishnah, maybe you said that she divided the value of that animal. So he asked a question, since you have here a notion that Shimon said, I agree that Reuven purchased from Paul, but I put a half, you mean to say that if you take an oath, Reuven get 3/4, like 75% of the value of that animal, and Shimon gets 25% of the value? Do you impose this type of oath? So this is one approach. On the other hand, what we just learned, we learned the concept of kol de'alim gvar. Whatever a person is aggressive, you don't have any proof, he come, he occupied, it's his, right? Why? Because neither one of them has clear, certain chazakah on that. So since Shimon agree upon that Reuven has a half, you cannot say kol de'alim gvar, whoever is the stronger, he is the winner. The question is, who has the chovat hochacha, who has the obligation to prove that he is the owner? Why? This Paul has the concept which we study a lot, is called marakame, that the marakame is the first one that came. And since he's not in our presence, this is the whole halachic question that he discussed based on our sugya. So another option you said, iname hatam, in the case of the 300 that you have 100 in doubt, kanis le Rabbi Yossi l'Aramai. Rabbi Yossi said, okay, if that over there, I'm going to put a fine, penalize the swindler by confiscating his deposit so that he will admit that he lied in order to receive his original deposit of the 100 to the belly. So even you notice what said, that one of them is not truthful, one of them is liar. Here's the Tosfot. I'm just reading the vignette of the Tosfot. He says, you know that one of them is such a no good liar, right? One said, I found this yesterday, and the other guy said, I found it today. So you know that someone is lying here. We agree upon that they should divide it. We don't say, let's leave it, because the other party, the liar, will lose nothing by that. Just a side story, we talked today about the Chafetz Chaim. It's a famous story about the Chafetz Chaim. He saw a guy that the entire Shmones, the entire Amida, is spacing out. So he said to him, you know, can you try to concentrate? He says, very end of the Amida, I realize that I'm in different planet, that I'm not focusing on my praying. So the Chafetz Chaim said to him, may I give you a good allegory, a good example. Imagine in those days in the market, was a lady that carries a wagon of apples. And she's taking this wagon with her apples, she's standing there, and one horrible bandit, criminal, comes in and just take the entire a cart and throw it to the floor. And guess what? People run around, grab apples left and right, and she's standing there and crying. So somebody smart came to her and says, lady, listen, standing here and crying makes nothing. Take your card, take whatever apples you have on the floor and running around. Instead of let people grab it, you grab it, whatever left over, and put it on your card, so at least something left. So he said to him, the same notion as we study, he says, if you realize even at the end of the Shmoneh Esrei, at the end of your prayer, that you're not there, don't say, okay, I give up hope, I'm finishing, and this is the way it is. It says, no, you have still a little diamond left, a little portion of your prayer that you can fulfill. Just focus from now on to the very end. So the Gemara rejected the second explanation and said, Bava Metzia, if you tell me that you have two people that holding a garments, right? And they're holding a garments of what? Of a lost item. So by putting down, so what happened here? This not bring a person who is not truthful to say the truth. Why? Because he will not escape from losing. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi agreed that we should divide it. But when it's come to mekach umimkar, when you have two people who hold the talit, and each of them said that I'm the one who purchased it. So what we said, my ikale meimar. So what we said earlier, that you leave this garment alone, so it means that the person who's lying gain. All notion is, that's the way the Rosh and others said, that we want to enforce the person who's lying to tell us the truth. So therefore we have to go and say, Ela machvarta kedeshaninan meikara. So you have to say that the distinction is clearly, as we explained initially, the difference between the cases is that in the Mishnah there is no certainty that one of them is lying. You know that right post World War II in Israel was blood was split left and right, so it was people that just perished and have nobody to claim. And it was before the establishment of the state, a lot of places that the owner, or in Poland, people came from Europe and purchased property, never lived there, and you have those different non-profit organizations that have some attach to that estate. So the question was in that case the city of Ramla, which is not far from Tel Aviv in Israel, and it was a state that belongs to the Polish Jews, and is no any knowledge of the hair of the children. And the question come up, one, can that organization sell this estate? Who hold the income or the money that the estate brings? What about if tomorrow a heir or some a family member claim ownership of that? If we sell it and the price of the property change, how will be able to compensate for the difference? And furthermore, since we all part of the Jewish nation, there are maybe far away extended family that entitled to that estate. So, for example, can we take the money and buy a Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll, in memory of the deceased that originally owns this estate? Or another question is the organization, non-profit organization that occupy themselves with the attorney over that estate, if they're entitled to get income from that transaction. So all of that was based on the response of the rabbis was based on what we studied today. Anyway, the Gemara challenged and they said, Bein leRabanan uven leRabbi Yossi. When we talk about Maneh Shlishi, again, Maneh Shlishi, for those who came now, Maneh Shlishi is a situation that you have three people, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven gave Levi $100, Shimon gave Levi $200. Levi it doesn't remember who gave him what, and Reuven claimed he gave 200, and Shimon claimed that he gave 200, and it's clear that one of them is lying. So we have a notion of the sages that said, give each party 100, and the third one leave it alone for Elijah. And you have Rabbi Yossi that said, take the entire 300, put it aside, until we find who's saying the truth and who's not. So, Bein leRabanan, Bein leRabbi Yossi, Hatam gabei chenvani al pinkaso. Remember we discussed a situation that you have a store owner, which is, you have the store manager and you have the regular laborer that works there, have a different contract with the original owner. Nothing to do with each other. And therefore they did not have a real discussion with each other because they are separate, the Ritva said. But the problem is that the store manager swear that he paid the laborer for his labor, and the laborer said that he never get the money, and the owner of the store needs to pay in a way to both. even without taking an oath. So they said, מה ישנה דלא אמרינא נפקי לממונה מבעל הבית, ויהיה מונחת שיבוא אליהו. Why we don't say in that case, since it's a big dispute, who did what, who paid, if they paid, let's take the money from the owner, put it aside, and said, when Eliyahu Navi will come, we'll know the truth. So they said, the habevadai ikaramite, because over there is certainly a swindler among the litigant people, someone who's lying, since it is impossible that both the storekeeper and the laborer are telling the truth. It can be. So the Gemara said, so why did the Mishnah in Tractate Shvuot said that both of them entitled to get money from the owner? So they said, Amrei hatam, over there in Tractate Shvuot, in the store owner, Hainu Tama, the Amar Leichen Vanila Baal Abayit, because he said the storekeeper said to the owner, Anash lichutach didat kavidna. I paid the laborer the way that you asked me to pay. I pay him for his job. Ma'it legabei sachir. So why should I go to court with him? I have nothing to do with him. I paid him. Even if he take an oath that I never paid him, I cannot trust him. He is maybe a wicked person, and I don't have to trust his word and to take his word the way he said it. Rashi explains that I gave it to him with good faith. At he'emante, you are the owner, you trust this laborer that he is not going to cheat you. Delo amart li besadei havli. You did not tell me, give him this money at the front of witnesses. So it means it's your fault that you told me, right? You called me and you said to me, pay him. You didn't tell me to pay him at the front of witnesses, that they confirm that I pay him his labor. So I should not lose money because you messed up. So therefore, you don't expect me to take my money and to put it aside until Eliyahu Navi come. So therefore, now we understand why the storekeeper entitled to take from the owner the entire amount. Now, in regard to the laborer, why he gets everything, v'sachir name amar leba'al habayit, and the higher laborer can also say to the employer, Ana avdei avid et hagabach. You know what happened to me? I work for you. I work for you. So you have to pay me because I get a whatever it is, daily payment, weekly payment. My itli gabei chenvani. What do I have to do with this guy, with the storekeeper? I know you. You are the owner. You are the one who in charge. Afal gav de mishtabali lo me'eman li. Even the storekeeper take an oath that he paid me. I don't trust what he said because I don't trust him in the first place. So the whole idea is the argument. Each party says, I don't want to go to court with the other party because I don't know him. I know you as the owner. Hilkach. So therefore we have no choice by force of circumstance. What we said. Both parties take an oath and take payment from the employer. Now, the Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, he asked a question, why the storekeeper needs to prove that the laborer took it from him. Why he have this obligation? And he explained, pay to employee is a biblical precept. The Torah requires a payment to the employees in a daily basis. Versus when it's come to the storekeeper himself, that's rabbinic enactment. Now, the truth is, the Shach disagree with the Ramban, and the Chazon Ish explained to us, what does that mean? He said that since he said to the storekeeper, give him the money, we have to trust him that he did it. It's like the storekeeper said to someone, imagine those days, you walk in, you send your family members, they taking stuff from the store and he write it on a piece of paper. Remember those days, Gilbert? Yeah. Right. So the storekeeper comes to you and he says, you know, you owe me from last month $200. And you said it's impossible. It's impossible. The most I did is 50, maybe 100. Can't be 200. So the question is, who is the one whom we trust? Do we say that the owner of the store, we trust that all of his paper is true, or you trust you as the customer? Because let's face it, people lying. Sometimes people exaggerating the truth. Sometimes people adds more to their bills, right? Sometimes you see in invoices that people add something that it's not really part of the merchandise. So to whom you have to trust? Based on this, you see, that's the notion of the Chazon Ish. That's the reason why in some cases you have to pay both. Tani Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia derived from that an important concept, which is, if someone said to his fellow, Maneli biyadcha, said to his fellow, I have 100, let's say $100 in your possession that you borrow from me and did not repay. ועלה אומר, אין לך בידי כלום. And the other party says, I never get anything from you. Do you ever know people like that? Right? Unfortunately, it's a reality of life, right? והעדים מעידים אותו שיש לו 50 זוז. This guy bring a witnesses and said, we know that he owe him 50. So now what do you do now? So נותן לו 50 זוז, since you have the witnesses. So 50 is definite. So he owe him 50 definitely. וישבע על השער, and therefore the reminder, we impose an oath on him that he did not borrow the 50 remaining dollars from him. So that's the Ritva said, שבועה של מודה במקצת, that's the oath of someone who agree upon in some but not in all. But the problem is that he agreed not at the first place. He agreed only the two witnesses that came in and testified that he owe him some, right? So they said, שלא תהא הודעת פיו גדולה מהודעת עדים מקל וחומר. That the admission of one's own mouth should not carry greater weight than the testimony of witnesses, because that witnesses testify that he owes an amount equal to the part of the claim. So he is all the more so obligated to take an oath with regard to the rest of the money. Now, the Chenvani al Pinkaso, this subject, it's in Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat 91. You see it also in the Rambam, Milchot Melveh Veloveh, chapter 16. They said, if an employer said to a storekeeper, give my labor a amount, in those days it's called sela, and subsequently the storekeeper claims that he gave him the money, but the laborer claims that he never received it. So the storekeeper takes an oath that he gave him the money, and the laborer takes an oath that he never received it, and they each collect the money from the employer. If the employer denies having given these instructions to the storekeeper, and there are no witnesses of the incidents, he is exempt from paying him. Now, the idea is that you have the denial of the entire claim and the testimony confirming part of that. That's the 50 and 100. Because if one completely denies a claim that he owes a certain amount of money, and witnesses testify that he owes part of the money, so he incurs liability to pay the amount to which that the witnesses attests, and he is obligated by Torah law to take an oath with regard to the rest of the sum. That's basically the notion of Rabbi Chia. Vetana Tuna. Now we try to juxtapose to what we study in the Mishnah. The Mishnah we learn the Ishnaim Ochazim Betalit, that we have two people that hold the garments, and each of them said, I am the owner, right? Ze omer ani metza'atiya. The first one said, I found it, and the other said, I found it. So you have here a case that each litigant takes an oath, and they divided the garment, or the value of the garment. But here, in case the holding part of the garment. Anan sahadei demai detafes haididehu. We are witnesses that what he holds belongs to him. Man detafis haididehu. Vekatane yishava. And we learn in Mishnah that each of them needs to take an oath. So the Gemara said, "Mai shelo teh odat pi gdola me'adat edim mikal v'chomer." The same notion. Shelo tomar odat pi udera mirachman hashvoa leikderaba. Why the Torah said that they imposes an oath upon the one who agrees of the part of the amount. We assume, we have the presumption that the person does not exhibit insolence by lying in the presence of his creditor. Reuven lend to Shimon 100K, and Shimon, it's very unlikely that come and see so bad, ungrateful, to say he never borrowed anything from him. We assume so. Again, that's Rashi in Gittin 51. You see that either you say that the Tosfot explained that the creditor recognized all kind of fact, or because Rashi said in Bava Kamma 107 that it's very far away that people behave in such a manner that you deny totally any amount of money by any means. So therefore, he said, "V'hai bechulei b'ay denachperei, v'had lo kafrei mishum da'en adam beziz panav." We assume that the person does not deny all of it because a person does not exhibit such a level of insolence. So Tosfot said, you cannot go by the Ta'anat Migo, which means you assume that because he can deny the entire, he is not denying part. Because when you're dealing with such a liar, so it's a problematic even to agree of acceptance of part. 3b, V'hai bechulei ba'ei delo deilei. So in order to really exhibit this situation, you have to have a person wants to admit that the creditor, that he owes the entire amount of money, because again, the issue is when you're dealing with liar, so you ask yourself a question, if someone holds money that is not his, he's also suspected to come to court and lie. Because it's the same trait, the same mindset, is a criminal personality. V'hai delo odei, and here, when he is not, he denies owing him part, is because he reasons. And he said to himself, if I admit to him with regard to all the debt, he will lodge a claim against me with regard to all of it. And right now, I do not have the money to pay. So therefore, that he tried to evade his creditor, which unfortunately happened. It ever happened to you? You lend your friend $1,000, and all of a sudden it passed 2-3 months, and you're after him, and he tried to run away, not answering the phone, right? You try to catch him, you don't know where is he, right? It happened. So he said, "V'savar ad dehavu leizuzeu paranale." So he figured out, when I have the money, then I pay him all of it. So the rationalization enables one to falsely deny part of the claim. So therefore the Torah interfered. That's the reason why the Torah said, guess what? If the guy behaved like that, we want him to take an oath. So the moment we impose an oath of him, we believe that that forces him to admit that he owed the money entirely. But in a case where the testimony of witnesses, he make him liable to part of the money, which means that you cannot say that his intent is to run away from paying. Why? Because he denied not part, he denied the entire amount. You may say that we will not impose an oath upon him, because if you suspected him for stealing the money, he is also suspected to make a lie, for kamash melan de kal vachomer hu. So here I would like to add a few points. First, I would like to start with Minchat Chinuch. Minchat Chinuch and others have a discussion here based on the notion that Rashi and Tosfot ask, someone who's kofer hakol, he denies everything, denies, have nothing to do with any. And eventually he is a liar, right? So the question is, we said Chashida Mamona, we suspected him over lying over money. Chashida Shvuata, we also suspected that he come to court and lie. So Rashi in Tractate Sanhedrin and others, he hold that when it's come to this type of thief, it's not always when someone steals money from someone else, but it can be a different form of thievery by borrowing money and not returning the money you own. So therefore, he said, if you go by the Torah law, you cannot tell me that it's lo tigzol, you shall not steal. But he said it's a different violation. The Torah said lo ta'ashok, because following Rashi, that's the isur, that's the prohibition. Lo ta'ashok meaning you should not, in a way, take advantage of good heart of your fellow by him giving you money with the trust that you is going to have it back, and you are playing games and not bringing it back. So Reb Chaim of Brisk elaborated and said, when Reuven owe money to Shimon, let's say 100K. So what is the original mitzvah? The original mitzvah of, for example, tzedakah in general, it's ad chomesh, it's up to 20%. So if he owe him 100K, he can say to himself, okay, I now make a deal, and the deal I make is 200K. So guess what? I need to put 40, I'll give him 40, because the obligation is up to chomesh. Up to what? 20%. So from the 200K, I'll give him 40K. So Chaim Brisk said that's not the way that the Torah teaches us. It's not in every case. If you borrow money, for example, 100K, you cannot play game of the chomesh. You have to pay what you owe entirely and not use or abuse the law for different reasons. That's basically the same notion as prosbul, that people sometimes take advantage and cutting corner of the law. So the Gemara asks a question, umay kal vachomer, and what is the explanation of this inference? Uma piv she'en mechayvo mamon, if a person come to us and said, I owe something. So by saying something like that, mechayvo shvuah, since he agree in part of what he owe, so therefore he needs to take an oath for the rest of the money. Edim shemechayvim oto mamon, if two people come and say that you owe something to someone, eino din shemechayvim oto shvuah, how much so that we can impose an oath upon him? So the Gemara said, ufiv en mechayvo mamon, you mean to say that the admission of his own mouth not rendering him liable to pay money? Veha hoda'at ba'al din keme'a edin dami. We hold, and we said it many times, when one who admits to a debt in the presence of witnesses is liable to pay is the same as 100 witnesses come and said that he owes. That's the famous Choshen Mishpat 81 said. So therefore, my mammon was exactly the money that one is not liable to pay based on his own admission. So they said, knas, that's the final. Ma piv she'en mechayvo knas mechayvo shvuah. The same way as his own admission, his own words. So if he agree upon part, we impose upon him an oath. Eidim shemechayvim oto knas, when you have witnesses that make him liable to pay the fine, eino din shemechayvim oto shvuah. So it's not logical that they should render him liable to take an oath with regard to remaining amount of money. Based on this, there is a beautiful Baal HaTanya, the Shulchan Aruch Harav. He wrote in Likutim, by the end of Shulchan Aruch Harav, he has a very fascinating thought based on this sugya. What we said about a shochet, a butcher, it was a butcher in the community. people usually go by the way that you're buying meat from someone whom not only the rabbi approves, but also is the known, respected butcher that you can trust, because you cannot be there when he does all the process of shecheting. So unfortunately, that person was caught in the, not one time, but aveira kvuah, something that he caught more than once, doing something wrong. So the question is, we have a concept that mumar ledavar echad, mumar leakol. If you caught him for one thing, even it's nothing to do with shchita, you can come in and say that you cannot trust him with other matters. Why? Because in those days, when it's come to cheskat kashrut, in those days they need to show the rabbi the knife before the shochet and make sure that the rabbis approve it. And the Balatanya said, this is the Likutim by the end of Shulchan Aruch HaRav, he said that nowadays, since we not have this concept of the shochet showing the rabbi the knife, so we should be more machmir, we should be more stricter, in a sense that when you take a shochet, it should be Yereh Shamayim me'od, it should be a highest level of God-fearing person. So therefore, if we caught him in one manner, that happens more than once, you cannot trust him in a shchita, because he doesn't have this concept of Yereh Shamayim merubim, Yereh Shamayim me'od, and it's based on the same sugya we just learned. The Choshen Mishpat elaborates and said in 87, he said, if one claims that another owes him money, and instead of completely denying it, if the defender admits part of the claim, by Torah law, the defender is obligated to take an oath with regard to the rest of the money. But you see, the moment the person is caught more than once to behave inappropriately, then in a manner of trust, you cannot rely on that person. Ma lepiv sheken mechayvo korban, if someone unintentionally, unwittingly violated the prohibition that involved with karet, the Torah said that soul shall be cut off, and he needs to bring a special sin offering. That's what the Torah said in Leviticus chapter 5. So they said, Tomar be'edim. The Torah said in Leviticus chapter 5, vidvada, a person needs to take a confession, even if you have witnesses that said the opposite, that said, like Tosfot said, that he never did it, right? And it's applied, the Ritva said, to all different chataot. So tomar be'edim she'en mechayvin oto korban. So you said with the witnesses, the case that they testified that one transgress a prohibition does not obligate him to bring an offering if he denies it. So the Rashi here have a notion of migo, but anyway, I said halokashia Rabbi Chia ki Rabbi Meir svir alei damar edim mechavim oto korban mikal vachomer ditnan. So I'm first going to read the Mishnah in Kritu chapter 11, and then I'm going to explain it and elaborate. אמרו לו שניים אכלת חלב, והוא אומר לו אכלתי, רב מאיר מחייב וחכמים פוטרים. אמר רב מאיר, אם הביאו שניים ידי מיתה חמורה, לא הביאו ידי קורבן הקל, אמרו, מה אם ירצה לומר מזיד הייתי, ייפטר. So here, the idea is, Rashi call it Tanat Migo. A person can say, if I want to lie to you, I can find a way to lie to you and exempt myself from bringing the offering, because I have a way to do it even against those witnesses. So by the mere fact that according to Rabbi Meir, those witnesses can impose a sin offering upon a person the same as his own expression in his mouth, so that's sufficient. We have it a lot in the response in halakha and practical halachot. You see, for example, those days in Europe, you have a butcher. Right before he passed away, he called the rabbi and he cried out terribly. He says, "I'm so sorry, I apologize, I'm sorry." And Tosfot here said that we accepted the act of teshuvah. If a person did teshuvah even by the end of his life, we accepted it, and it's a very problematic by halakha, because that butcher said, for a long time I fed the community with nevelos and treifus. I fed the community with the non-kosher meat. The same applies with a woman that came and said she about to pass, and she said that she was unfaithful to her husband. Now in both cases, it turns that this person healed. So the butcher came in and he said, I never said it, the rabbi is lying, I never said anything like that. Or the woman, do you mean to say that she's prohibited to her husband because you have this, because if you go by the Tosfot דיבור מתחיל מה יוצא, if a person did teshuvah, it's all changed. So it's a very problematic by halacha. So there's a special responsa, it's called Shelot Utshuvot Shivat Zion. And that responsa brings this type of case, that the person is a penitent by the end of his life, and the rabbi as a result told the people in the city to do a machshir kelim, to purify their entire utensil. And this shochet, this butcher, all of a sudden miraculously turned heel, and he denies any connection to that statement. So basically the Shut Shivat Zion Mechadesh here, he tells us that since we have the concept of ne'emanut, the concept of trust upon the rabbi in the community, and therefore he can avoid a person to involve with shchita in the future, because he's the one who approves, and without his consent he cannot go back and do the shchita. And it's all based on what we said here, hoda'at piv, when a person come and said, I did something. So in general, we treat it differently, a person that just come out and say something, versus if the witnesses come in and testified over something. Ela ma lefiv sheken mechayvo hasham. If a person express something in his mouth, the Torah said in Bamidbar chapter 5 that the idea of paying fourth and fifth or paying guilt offering, etc., it's by expression of the mouth, not by witnesses. So they said, Asham Hainu Korban, which is the guilt offering is the same way as offering, about which there is a dispute between Rabbi Meir and the rabbis as to whether the testimony of witnesses render one liable to bring an offering. So they said, Ela amale piv sheken mechayvo chomesh. So the say, halo kasher chia Rabbi Meir svira la heicha de mechayev lekorban mi kal vachomer. So it means that if you have two that bring him to a severe punishment of death, how much so when it's come to just giving a light, a sacrificial offering, mechayev lechomesh kal vachomer. The Ritva elaborated and said, if you tell me that the two witnesses can impose upon a person execution by the rabbinic court, how much so when it's come to pay 20% compensation or fine? Ela ma lefiv shekenenu b'akhasha ubehazama, that the mouth it's not neither a contradiction or to refutation as applies to testimony of conspiring witnesses. תאמר בעדים שישנם בהכחשה ובהזמה, that the subject to contradiction and refutation as conspiring witnesses. So evidently the testimony of witnesses is weaker in some aspect than the admission of litigant. So I would like to conclude with halakha that you see it in Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law. In the morning, in the korbanot, in the preliminary service, we express, since we don't have at this time a temple and we don't have a physical sacrificial offering, so he said, may it will be that if that if I deserve to bring a sin offering or guilt offering, ke'ilu ikravti, that it's like expression that these bulls, instead of bringing those offerings, my lip service, my prayer, my expression should be like bringing those offerings. So the question is, when it's come to korban chatat, the sin offering, it's specifically if a person confesses, if a person knows that he did something wrong and he confesses, so then he needs to do it. But other than that, he cannot bring an offering for something that is not confesses over. So therefore, there are those who hold that when it's come to chatat, a person should not say it. She can say this prayer should be a substitute for a burn offering, olah offering, guilt offering, asham offering, peace offering, shlamim, but not korban chatat. Yehi ratzon ki ilu ikravti, excluding korban chatat. There are some who hold this notion based on our sugya.
בירושלים כרתו